Today we're going to be working on a 2007 Subaru Legacy. In this particular case, we're going to be replacing the hub bearing here because the bearing is making like a very loud rumbling noise. So I'm going to show you what you got to do, and we're going to get through this. Basically, what we're going to do first, we're going to take the brake caliper and the mounting bracket off, and we're going to remove this rotor from the car. A couple of tools that you're going to need, I'm going to show you. Nothing crazy. You're going to need some basic hand tools, 14 millimeter socket with an extension, and a 14 millimeter wrench to take out the lower bolt. And then we're just going to unbolt it, and we'll get this thing off of here. You're also going to need a socket to go and take this axle nut off here. The axle nut, from what I'm remembering, I think it's like 1 1/4. And you just shoot this off, and you make sure the axle pushes in. So let's grab some tools and let's get started. You put a screwdriver in the back, right between the brake pad and the caliper, and you slowly pry it until you push the piston all the way back into the bore. Once it's pushed back into the bore, you just make sure it slides properly, which it does. And then we're going to remove those 2 bolts up underneath here. It's 14 millimeter, the top as well as the bottom. We're just going to break them loose and take them out. And remember I told you about here? Just the angle it's at, it makes it a little bit difficult to get in there. So you can break it loose, but you may need a wrench to get it out the rest of the way. You'll see. Nope, coming right out. Alright, so unscrew these bolts all the way, and then we're going to take that caliper off. Don't lose these bolts because you're going to need to reuse them again when we put this back together. Alright, so we just relocate that up to the side for now, just to get it out of our way. And then what we're going to do is, I'm going to show you underneath here. We're going to get in here with a the bolts that we need to get out are actually right up inside here, and the other one is inside over there. As you can see, you can't get in there with a normal ratchet. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that 14 millimeter socket, we're going to put it on the extension, and we're going to get in here with an extension onto it like that, and then we'll break it loose and take it out, and we're going to do the same thing on the bottom right over here also. So let me do that, and we'll see how that goes. Once you break it loose, you usually get them out by hand. Let's see how it goes. Because we're going to need to reuse that. And we're going to take the bottom one out too. Put your extension in there. And break that loose. This bolt also, so don't lose it. And then this bracket comes right off like that. And then the way you get the rotor off the car is, one, you can hit it with a hammer and try to knock it off, or you can just screw a bolt into that little hole that I showed you before. Screw the bolt in and you tighten it up, and it comes right out. Instead of beating on it with a hammer and possibly missing and doing some damage, I always take it off with a bolt, unless it's very loose. And as you can see, it pulls it right off. Right? We'll take it off. And we're going to discard this. We don't need it. We'll get a new one. Okay, now that we have that off, we're going to take off this nut that's right on here. It's a 1 1/4 inch nut. We're going to use an air gun to take that off. If you don't have an air gun, you can use you'd have to take it off by hand. It's a little bit more difficult, but you could do it. You know, you put the drum back on, and you could take it off with a regular ratchet. I have air, so we're going to shoot it off like this now. I always make sure that the axle pushes in, which it did. It pushed right in, so we're in good shape there. All right, next thing we're going to do is we're going to go around the back, and I'll show you the bolts that we're going to be removing. There's 4 bolts in the back of the bearing that actually hold it in. Get some. All right, don't know if you can see it, but up underneath here, see this bolt right here? There's one here, one up a little further right there, and 2 of them over on this side right here. So we're going to take those 4 bolts out, and the way we get in there again is we just get in here with a socket and a ratchet, and we're going to take those bolts out. So let's continue. Once you break them loose, they should come right out. Very good. We're going to break them all loose first. Next thing I'm going to show you is one thing before you try to pull this out of here. You want to be careful, you don't want to damage the ABS sensor. Okay. Down underneath here is your ABS sensor. It's got a 10mm nut up on the top right here. We're going to take that nut out, and we're going to pull that sensor out of the way before we try to take the bearing out. So let's take that out, and then we'll get that bearing out. That bolt feels like it's going to snap off and stop. Don't force it, because then you're going to have a problem. Came right out, not a problem with that. So unscrew the sensor and take it out so that you don't damage it when you try to pull this bearing out. The sensor's a little bit tight. So what I'm doing, I'm going to show you this in a second here. I get underneath the sensor with a screwdriver here, and you just rock it back and forth, and it comes up. And then we'll just pull it out of the way. I'm going to need 2 hands to do this, so let me pull that sensor out, and we'll come right back. Okay, and that's the ABS sensor when you take it out. And the reason you want to remove it is because when you try to get this hub assembly off, you don't want it pulling forward the axle and accidentally breaking this off, because then your ABS light's going to be on. So you want to take that out of the way. All right, let's get in here. We're going to get in here with a hammer. We're going to bang this a few times, and we're going to get this bearing off, and we'll get the new one back on. So let me get started. Sometimes these are really tight, so. Okay, I just want to show you this here. Remember I said just tap on it a little bit and you should be able to knock it out. It wasn't just a little tap, and I had to beat the daylights out of this thing just to get it to move. So, you know, you do have to pound the heck out of it to get it to move out of there. So now we're going to take this apart here. We'll take this out. You can't go too far with it. but in the back we're going to hammer the bearing out. Sorry. In the back we're going to hammer that bearing out of the backing plate. So let me do that and you can watch what I'm going to do. Now that bearing was really in there really tight. I had to pound the heck out of it. As you can see, all these studs are all twisted from me banging on this trying to get it out without damaging the parking brakes. All right, after you have this out like this, now what we're going to do is hold the backing plate like this, and we're going to bang that bearing down and out of the backing plate without removing that parking brake cable. Watch your feet because this is going to fall out on the floor. Just alternate from side to side until you get it to move. It really is tight. You feel it popping out now. Alright. Now we got it out. You can see how I destroyed these studs trying to just to get it to move. But this gets rusted into the knuckle in the back here, and that's what causes it. So what I'm going to do, before I put the new one in, I'm going to clean this up a little bit with a file to try to, so that the bearing slides in properly. I am using a round file just to clean out some of that rust inside there. You won't get all of it out, but you get a good significant amount out. That way your new bearing can go right back in without any problems. And obviously grease helps out quite a bit when you put it back together. So we're going to lubricate everything up really well. Here's our new bearing. And what we're going to do is we're going to get underneath there, and we're going to put the backing plate back on. We're going to put this back in here, and then we're going to go underneath the bottom here, and we're going to try to line it up from the bottom to get the screws back in through here while it's on there. A little bit difficult, but you just play with it, you should be able to get it in there. Try to get the screws in there. Get the other ones caught. Okay. We got that all tightened up. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to put that ABS sensor back in that we previously took out. With the sensor, you just push it right back in the hole, obviously, and tighten down the screw. Screw it in by hand so you don't cross-thread it by accident. And this you just snug it down. It doesn't have to be real tight, just snug. Okay, nice and tight. Alright, next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our nut, screw the nut on by hand. And then we're going to take our ratchet, our air gun, and shoot that nut down tight. Nice and tight. And the last thing we're going to do is, once we have the nut on, there's a little keyway right here. We just have to close that keyway up so that this nut doesn't come off by accident. That's it. Well done. All right, just bend the keyway down like that, just to keep the nut from going out of there. All right, so now we got the 4 bolts in the back tight. We got the nut tight here. Next thing we're going to do is put our rotor on, put the brakes back on. So let's get started on that. Okay, grab our new rotor. It just slides right over the top, nice and tight. All right, next thing we're going to do is we're going to take the brake pads off that were in here. And obviously we're going to, with this one, we're going to change the hardware right here. And the way you get the hardware out is just pull it, and it comes right out. Same thing here. It comes right out, and we're going to replace these. The way you replace them is just put the new hardware on. You take it and you push it, and it locks right in just the way it's supposed to be. Like that. All right, next thing we're going to do, put the other one on here like this too. And push it in place like that. Locks it right in. Okay. And then we're going to lubricate all of the slide pins on here. Anything that slides, we're going to lubricate. We use a brake silicone that's made specifically for this. And what you're going to do is you're going to, wherever you take the slide pin out, it's got to go back in the same spot. So you put some brake lubricant on it, you put it back in, push it all the way down, make sure that rubber boot comes back up on where it's supposed to. And we do the same thing on this side here. Put some brake grease on here, put it back in here like this, and you see that slides right back up. All right, next thing we're going to do is grease everywhere that the brake pad is going to touch. Put a good amount of grease on it, like that. All right, and then we're going to mount that the bracket back on like this here, and we'll put those screws in the back. But before I do that, I just want to get one of the brake pads in there, make sure it slides the way it's supposed to. Perfect. All I always do is, it makes it a little bit easier, is put the brake pads in here, and the reason I'm going to show you why. Then you slide it over the top here. And then you just squeeze the brake pads and it holds your mounting bracket so you can go underneath it and put your screws in. Now remember those screws, they were 14 millimeter. So we're going to reinstall those 14 millimeter screws to hold the mounting bracket onto the back of the knob. Light. See what I'm doing here. And then you can just move this around as needed to get the bolts. What we're going to do is we're going to put that caliper back on and we'll reinstall the bolts that we took out. Now, I just want to show you this also. Sometimes you need to push the piston back in a little bit further because it didn't push in far enough. If that's the case, they sell a tool like this, and basically what you do is you put your pad here, you put your pad there, and then this tool goes right in between the two of them, like that, and then you tighten it, and it'll push the piston all the way back into the bore. Sometimes you have to go just a little bit more. It pushes all the way in, then you can take your tool back off. Caliper back in the way it came out. With these slide pins here, just push them in so you can get the caliper over the top of it. And then we'll put these bolts back in that we previously took out. Screw them in by hand first, as far as you can by hand. Try to tighten these up. Sometimes you'll run into a little bit of a problem where these slide pins actually rotate. What you do is you grab a wrench and you hold it with a wrench like this, and then you can tighten up the bolts all the way tight. Nice and tight. What we're going to do, we're going to do the same thing on the bottom. Hold it with a wrench, and then tighten the nut all the way in down on the bottom. Tighten it up, nice and tight. All right. Okay, just to confirm everything now, we want to make sure in our head that everything is tight. We have the rotor is on, brake pads are in place, they're lubricated everywhere that the brake pad touches. We tightened up our bolt that holds the axle in place. We peened it down so that's not going to turn out. We tightened up the 4 bolts in the back of the bearing, nice and tight. And our brakes are tight now too. The caliper mounting bracket is reattached and tight. The brake caliper itself is mounted to the bracket, and that's tight. And that's it. We're all set. All right, next thing we're going to do, we're going to go around the other side, and we're going to do the bearing on the other side as well. So let's get this job wrapped up, and we'll get it out the door. And that's it. Any questions, any comments, you need any advice or anything, drop me a line. Be more than happy to talk to you about anything. All right, thanks for watching. See you on the next one.